And then God says, this is going to be when you know something's close. On that day, I'll make Jerusalem a heavy stone, and all the nations of earth will gather against it. There's going to be global hatred for Israel. Now, right now, Israel's the most voted against entity in the history of the United Nations in the last 70 years. But let's see, that was April 18th. So what's today? The 26th? That was 10 days ago, and that's only because I haven't taken the time to look. Every day you can find Iran saying something outrageous like that. We're going to destroy Israel. You read the news magazines, there's a new Cold War beyond the Ukrainian thing where Russia, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon and Yemen are against Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel and the United States. It's a new Cold War. And when Turkey takes sides, and when that becomes green, and when Northern Africa takes side and that becomes green, and the old Soviet republics turn green, it's going to be just like Ezekiel said. But finally, the explosion of global evangelism. Matthew 24 says, this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. But the gospel, Mark 13 says, must be to all the nations. This is the IMB. You ever heard of IMB, the International Mission Board of the Southern Baptist Convention of the United States? This is not the Facebook Live chart. This is the unreached people group chart. And you'll hear me tell story after story about Bonnie and I address the closed country missionaries that we serve at these conferences. And these people are putting medical facilities near all those red dots. And any country in the world will take a fully funded Franklin Graham Samaritan Purse hospital. North Korea has taken it. Myanmar, you name it. All the Muslim countries are open-armed to these hospitals because they will put a hospital where there's no medical facility for 700 miles. And they say, we're putting in the hospital, but it's going to be staffed by Christians. They go, okay, you can't proselytize. They say, we won't proselytize. And they go there, and what happens is those people come trudging across the desert to these hospitals, and you should hear the testimonies we hear. One lady told us, she said she was an obstetrician from Harvard, trained at Harvard Medical School. She goes over there to that sub-Sahara country where they have high infant mortality, and she said that people would come in, and she would have to tell them that that little child is going to die. And she said, but when that little child dies, I will bury that child and have a service for you. And she actually bought the burial shroud material, and every time, this high infant mortality, hundreds of these little children died. And she lovingly took them, wrapped them up, and before sunset, she had a little service, and in the cemetery, in the hospital precinct, she read the scriptures. And then she just stood there weeping. She said, the emotional toll? She said, I've buried 600 babies that have died. Infant mortality in our sub-Sahara country is horrible. But she said 3 months after the funeral or 6 months later, the family will come and they'll knock on my door and they'll say, we lost our little one you buried out back. Why did you do that? And she said, I read the scriptures. It's because Jesus loves the little children. Let them come unto me, and your little child is safe in the arms of Jesus now. They walk out. They didn't like that word, Jesus. 6 months later, they come back and say, and that woman, through her little hospital by the dot there, has led many of them to the Lord. Well, basically, Jesus gives us a map of how it all ends. He introduces it by saying we should be part of it, by saying, your kingdom come. That means we want you to come. He outlined it with birth pains, and then he illustrated the birth pains in Revelation 6-19. So what we find from the book of Revelation is, how did Jesus say we would know the end of the world is coming? He said, you will see the whole world watching with fear what's coming on this planet.